So welcome to our webinar on Wellbeing Teams. And Wellbeing Teams are self-managed teams in home care. Now this was in The Guardian in November last year, and it talks about the day in the life of a care worker, and it describes the story of Jean. And Jean starts work at 6:30 in the morning. She does 23 calls in 12 hours. She drives 20 miles between appointments, and she earns £64.80 before tax. Now, 1 in 7 people like Jean are on 0-hour contracts, and there's over 600,000 people employed in the care sector at the moment. Jean, as well as travelling 20 miles, she's not paid for her travel time. Jean says, "It's a stressful work. I feel like I'm on my own with very little support. It's a lonely job, you know. You get to people's houses and you often face problems on your own. They tell you all of their worries and then I take them home with me. Often at night I'm tossing and turning, worrying about them." But Jean says she still loves her job. And I think this is the problem that we're trying to solve. We've got great people like Jean who love their jobs and want to do a really, really good job. But the way the system is constructed at the moment, as Andrea Sutcliffe says, it's turning good people into bad care workers. And Deming, one of the most significant people in quality, echoes this, that putting a good person in a bad system, the bad system wins every time, no contest. So of course that then creates problems around quality, and we've seen a 25% increase in complaints to local ombudsmen over the last couple of years, and 25% of services are rated by CQC as needing improvement or inadequate. And Jean's experience might also explain why there's a 40% turnover rate with home care staff. Now we think this guy, Jos de Blok, has got part of the answer here. And Buurtzorg is really famous for its innovative work in the Netherlands with self-managed teams with nurses. And I was inspired by this work to think about what it could mean in the UK context. So in the UK, our policy context is personalisation. Greater choice and control for older people. It's informed by the Care Act, and the Care Act itself and the guidance requires that we focus both on aspirations and outcomes. And also that means that we're looking at personal budgets where people can have the maximum amount of choice and control over their services, and individual service funds are one way that a personal budget could be used. So these are the questions that I started to ask myself. How can we give people choice and control and improve health and well-being? How can we create effective self-managed teams? How can we focus on outcomes and not just hours? And how can we make this work in a personal budget context using individual service funds and work equally well for self-funders? So there are 2 ways that wellbeing teams are different: how the support is organised and how people experience the service. So in terms of how the support is organised, teams are in self-managed teams in a local neighbourhood with no more than 12 people. And one of the principles is we support people to bring the whole selves to work. So that is, we take account of people's hobbies and interests, their potential caring responsibilities and how they want to work. And also we really learn what good support looks like for everybody. How it's different for people receiving the service? Well, we strongly focus on co-production. And that means we take account of the person's own priorities and their outcomes. We co-design the service with them. And we even go as far as enabling people to choose their own team. And I'll explain how that works in a few minutes' time. The whole person focus is not just for people who work in wellbeing teams. Obviously, it's for people for whom we're delivering the service to as well. We work out what matters to the person, and this happens in the initial conversation. It's an asset-based approach, so we pay attention to the person's strengths as well as their outcomes and priorities. And we pay attention to the 5 ways to wellbeing. We also focus on building capacity and connections, and we do that through a support sequence and by working in partnership with community circles. So this is the support sequence, and when we've identified with the individual what their personal priorities are, we then ask a series of questions in this sequence. And the first is around self-care. We ask people or we talk to people about what we could do together to support the person's confidence in either taking care of themselves and their long-term condition, or generally their confidence in living at home. We never use the term self-care, but we start off in that place. Then we look at assistive technology. Now, we have a very broad approach to assistive technology. It could be using Skype or Facebook, as well as the well-known processes for assistive technology to enable people to stay well at home. And once we've explored self-care and assistive technology, then we look at friends, family, and community circles, the person's assets, and look at whether there's an opportunity there to work together to help the person achieve their priorities. Now, community circles are a way of delivering circles of support where friends and family come together with an independent facilitator who's a volunteer to help the person achieve the things that matter to them. And we introduce community circles right at the beginning of the process. And Wellbeing Teams are a partnership with community circles. Then we look at community and services and making sure that the person is getting the most out of their local community and the local services on offer. And then we look at whether there are opportunities for the wellbeing workers to support the person, when, where and how, and we put together and design the service there. So community circles are evidence-based practice, and they harness community resources to promote social inclusion and well-being. And Professor Knapp evaluated community circles with us and found it to be an evidence-based process. Let me tell you a little bit more about community circles. Let's watch this short animate together.
I've always been close to my mum, Olive. She's always been a confident lady, but when she left hospital after a fall, her confidence was really knocked. The jobs she needed help with were small, but they soon started piling up. And me and my husband Brian could only visit about once a week. I suspected other friends and family wanted to help out, but it felt awkward to ask, and I wasn't sure I even had the time to keep track of everything. When I called the council, they told me Mum didn't qualify for funded support yet, but they emailed me about community circles. Mum and I agreed that it could really help us out, so we phoned the local community circles connector, Kath. She came over for a cup of tea to explain how it would work. We thought about everyone who might be interested in joining Mum's community circle. Mum got to choose a local facilitator, Lucy. She's there to help the community circle work towards its purpose of supporting Mum to live well at home. The community circle has monthly meetings round the kitchen table with Mum, me, Lucy, Amir, Samira and Brian talking about what needs to be done. The meetings are great, friendly, informal and a good way to get everything organised. We use Rally Round to write down anything that needs doing. This way we can keep track of jobs, and other members of the community circle who can't make the meeting can be involved too. We all choose what to take responsibility for. And when it's done, we cross it off the list. This way, everyone can see what jobs need doing, who's doing what, and when they've done it. Regular emails keep us in the loop, and the mobile app helps us do it all on the move. Lucy, the community circle, and keeping track of actions on Rally Round has totally taken the pressure off me and made sure everyone's doing their bit. The whole system is safe and private, which means it's not just old people that can benefit. It's great for anyone who's vulnerable and needs a little extra help. Thanks to community circles and Rally Round, Olive now has a crack team taking care of her. Everyone feels included and makes a contribution which helps us all feel useful. No one gets too stressed, and Mum never feels like a burden.
So as you can see, community circles have a really powerful role of bringing together friends and family to support the person to achieve the life that they want. And Kath in the film there was the community circle connector, and every wellbeing team has their own Kath, their own connector as part of it. So wellbeing teams can operate both with self-funders like Norma, or people like Joan, whose budget is from the local authority or a health budget and is used as an individual service fund. So let's look at what that looks like in practice. Wellbeing teams are a new way to deliver home care. They are small, self-managed neighbourhood teams inspired by Buurtzorg. And they can work both with self-funders or people funded with a personal budget, for example, through an ISF. Let's look at what this would mean for Norma. So at the very first meeting, Claire, the Link Wellbeing worker, meets Norma to really find out what matters to her. The relationships that matter to her, the places that matter to her, the small things that matter to her as well. They also look at Norma's outcomes and priorities, and this involves looking at what's working and not working for Norma and establishing her priorities. Then they explore different ideas for designing her service together. We use something called a support sequence. That means we start off by thinking about self-care, then where can assistive technology help, what the role of family, friends or community could be, and this is where we introduce community circles, and then the role of the wellbeing workers. This gets put into a weekly plan. Norma is supported to choose her own team by two different means, either sharing one-page profiles or one-minute films. And at the end of that meeting, and of course that might take a couple of meetings, then Norma's one-page profile, her team profile and her care and support plan and contract are then shared with Norma to confirm their agreement. Norma's service will then start, and what's really different here is Claire does not hand over the service to someone else. Claire then works with the team directly and is part of Norma's team too. At the 6-week review, we check up on the actions and also look at what's working and not working from Norma's perspective and the team's perspective as well, and update the information we have. We also ask another question here, if I could, I would, to see what else Norma might be interested in doing in relation to feeling like she has a meaningful life and meaningful days. And of course, it's unlikely that it'd be possible to achieve that just through existing services. So this is where we really introduce community circles. And the community circle connector is there to explore with Norma what a circle could mean for her and to start to put that together. So community circle involves friends and family and community members around a clear purpose that the person identifies, facilitated by a volunteer facilitator. So then the community circle will start, and 6 months later there's a more formal person-centred review, where again we check actions, update what's working and not working, and this brings together both the team supporting Norma, the wellbeing team members and the community circle as well. Information from the 6-month review also informs Working Together for Change, which is a co-produced process where Norma's information goes to inform the direction of the team and the service overall. Now this would look exactly the same if we're providing the service to Joan with an individual service fund. The difference would be that the social worker would have identified Joan's outcomes and her indicative allocation, and Claire and Joan would build on those outcomes and establish what other priorities Joan would have to design the service together. So wellbeing teams have different conversations with people about what really matters to them. They're rooted in co-production, so people design their service together and even choose their team, as well as having a way of contributing to the direction of the service and the team through Working Together for Change. The other difference is the use of the support sequence, which is thinking about self-care first, assistive technology, the roles of friends, family and community, as well as thinking about the outcomes for each wellbeing worker's visit. So wellbeing teams deliver a flexible, person-centred service that's focused on outcomes, not hours. And as you can see there, it really is built around co-production, both at an individual level, deciding who, what, when, where and how you want your service. And then Working Together for Change brings together what each individual says is working and not working at a local level around the team, but can also happen at a community level as well. So given what we're exploring in Cheshire, this is where we can could host a Working Together for Change event where everybody supported would be contributing anonymously their top 2 working, top 2 not working, top 2 important in the future. And we bring together community members, teams, people themselves who want to be involved. And it's a day or a 2-day process to theme that and to make decisions together about how to build on what's working, change what's not working, and what people want for in the future. So this can be a critical part of a co-design process for some of the initiatives that we're looking at in Cheshire. So I mentioned that people got to choose their own team. Now that's not being part of an interview panel, but it's about when somebody is deciding on their service, looking at the 3 or 4 team members that will be available to support them and choosing 1 or 2. So there's no more than 4 team members that support any individual, and the person will choose who they want. So this is Annie, and in the induction process, we take 30-second or a minute films of people to introduce themselves, and then the wellbeing team worker would share these films to enable people to choose their team. Let's have a look at Annie's.
Hi, I'm Annie. 3 things that matter to me are art. I've got a degree in ceramics and I've always loved painting and drawing. I don't have time to make pots anymore, but at the moment I'm illustrating a children's book and I really enjoy that. I also really enjoy cookery. I enjoy all types of cookery. I'm not very good at baking cakes, but I love different cultures and finding out how they cook. And that brings me to my 3rd thing that I really love, and that's travelling. I travelled a lot in my 30s and I'd love to do that again. But at the moment I love travelling around this country and seeing what it has to offer, which is a great deal.
So to get people like Annie requires a really different way of recruiting people. And we have a values-based recruitment process, and I'm delighted to tell you that we're finalists for the Skills for Care accolade nationally in Best Recruitment Initiative. And we do that on the basis of a workshop. So the first thing that happens is we put the advert out. So the first time we did this, we put the advert on in Indeed. The advert's very different by itself. And we had 60 inquiries. And then we asked people to phone up and have a chat with the registered manager, a sort of informal telephone interview. And from the people who get through that, we then send them a pack. So we asked them to do their own 1-page profile, and we asked them to tell us why they're interested in being a wellbeing worker, just by answering 2 questions. Why do you think you could deliver compassionate personal care? And why do you want to be part of a self-managed team? We then give people a date 4 days before the date of the workshop to phone and confirm. So again, the first time we did this, we had 30 telephone interviews and we sent 30 packs out, and then 10 people phoned to confirm. 9 people arrived on the day. This reminds me why I don't host parties, because I was there 10 to 10, wondering whether we'd get all 10 people who confirmed or not. And we got 9, and the person who wasn't able to come had a family crisis overnight. So 9 people turned up. And then from that 9 and from the recruitment workshop, we appointed 5 people. Now, at the same time we were doing this, my colleague Geraldine, who works for the same organisation, was also trying to recruit new staff for another part of the service that weren't doing wellbeing teams. So she was doing the standard same kind of advert on Indeed, got lots of inquiries, shortlisted 5 for interview, ready for the 5 to turn up, and only 1 person turned up. And the 1 person said, I don't really know why I'm here, but the job centre makes me come because I've got to show I've gone to interviews. So this is a really different way of interviewing people, and let's have a look at it.
Eileen Cooper. I've been involved today with a Wellbeing recruitment team. I've really enjoyed it. It's been great.
So as you can see, it's really critical that the whole recruitment process is co-produced with older people as well. And Eileen's been involved in 2 of those recruitment days, and as you can see, really enjoys it. And when we get to the decision making, we start with Eileen's views and ask her who she'd really prefer to support her, and if there's any people she wouldn't want to support her at all, and the conversation starts there. So back to Jean. If you remember that Jean said it was a lonely job, that you don't feel supported and you're on your own. We're paying a lot of attention to the way that the teams are supported. So each team has a team coach, and the role of the coach is to support the team in working well together and learning the ropes around self-management. In order to deliver as a self-managed team, some of the roles that a manager would have played are shared by team members. For example, the scheduler around assistive technology and facilitating meetings. And to support the team members to really get into those roles and feel confident, they also have an individual coach for that role too. There are weekly team meetings, and the purpose of the team meetings is to share critical information about the individuals that are being supported and to proactively raise and address tensions. Each team member has a buddy as well, and they get support from headquarters too, and the systems for peer and group supervision. So here's a summary of how in Wellbeing Teams we're trying to address loneliness and improve health as well. So Wellbeing Teams, as I said, have community circles as part of it, and that builds social capital locally, gets local people involved in people's lives and gets people doing great things together. And we focus on outcomes, not hours. That's co-produced with these, focused on self-care, assistive technology and prevention. And by doing this, we address loneliness, boredom, helplessness and poor health. And loneliness, boredom and helplessness are what Atal Gandhi describes as the 3 scourges of old age. And we think Wellbeing Teams can help to make a difference there. And what we also know that if we make changes in loneliness, loneliness is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So if we can address some issues around loneliness, we'll have an impact on people's health too. So in relation to health, at the moment, our wellbeing teams are mainly social care team, but the Doncaster team is working in partnership with a GP practice called the Scott Practice in Doncaster. And what's happening there is the community matron, the community circle connector, and one of the wellbeing team members go out and proactively visit people who've been identified by the Scott Practice that are being at risk of going into hospital, going into A&E. So they go and proactively meet people and look at what's working and not working for them and their priorities. And if it's a health priority, the community matron picks it up. If people start to need support with getting up in the morning, medication, etc., the team picks it up. And if it's to do with loneliness and feeling like you haven't got any purpose and you're not getting well, the community circle connector will pick that up. So that's an exciting partnership with a GP practice. And in Devon, we're starting to explore the first integrated team for us, which would have wellbeing team, nurses and health colleagues too. So the big challenge is not just that we can do 1 or 2 teams, and there's 5 happening at the moment, but how can we make it happen at scale? And we've got 4 different ways of doing that. The first is that in June, our website will be up, and all of the materials, Wellbeing Workers Handbook, the coaching guides, the paperwork, will all be available freely, open source on the website for people to download. So enterprising home care organisations that want to move in this direction could download the materials and have a go. And if they download them and think, well, this is really, really useful, but I think I need a bit more support, they could then buy access to a membership site. So just like £500 a year that would get you access to a membership site with lots of different courses and opportunities to develop there. If they still wanted more support, they could buy in a support package that would be designed with them, or they could go for the social franchise option, which is the kind of building in a box where we support them to do everything at scale. Now here's one of our first franchises, which is Love to Care in Devon. And we've been busy recruiting Devon's first 2 teams in Paignton and in Torquay over the last couple of weeks. So they're getting started with their teams there. So just to finish, here's what I would love, that if sometime in the future, The Guardian could do a different kind of feature, and it could feature back to Jean, who we met right at the beginning, talking about a really different experience, because wellbeing team members are paid a salary, they're paid travel time as well as money for travel. They really do work as part of a team that meet together once a week as a team. 20% of their time is off rota to enable them to meet as a team and fulfill their roles. They focus on delivering outcomes, not just hours. And the well-being in wellbeing teams is about taking care of the team's well-being and individuals' well-being, as well as the well-being of the people we're supporting. So please follow me on Twitter if you want to keep in touch with what we're doing. And that's my email address as well if you want to get in touch about it. And I'm blogging about what we're trying and learning on helensanderson.net. Thank you.